Kia ora tātou namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is a big old podcast coming at you on a Tuesday here to go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters. You know what we do, you know how we do's it, and I got a question. I'm asking for a friend, and my friend wants to know if you can be a championship contender in a sporting league if you have lost the 3 home games with the biggest crowds of the season at your home ground. Is it possible to be a championship contender when you lose in front of your biggest home crowds in that season for 3 games? What do you reckon?
Is this from your friend Mr. A. Webster? I think I might have heard him ask this before. I still think you can be. I don't think that necessarily is a it's an unfortunate trend, but it's not necessarily a red flag, especially because I suspect the obviously we're talking about the Warriors here, are likely, they're not going to finish first or second, and that likely means that if they're going to make a run and compete for a championship, I think a lot of that's not going to happen in front of home crowds. You might get a home game first up, or possibly even second up, depending on how the shovels go. But they'd be playing a semi-final in Australia, and if somehow they make it all the way to the grand final itself, that'll be in Australia. You know, it's not necessarily the home crowds that are going to determine that, but it's not the best trend, when you get the big the big celebratory occasions, your biggest crowds in there, and they've managed to lose in front of those 3 biggest crowds that they've had so far this season.
That, of course, is the Warriors, as you pointed to, at Mount Smart Stadium. So I've got to keep putting this out there, but the biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year are both Auckland FC, and they're notably bigger than Warriors crowds. So the semi-final, which
they lost,
that was a dark 48 hours for me as a soldier of Mount Smart Stadium, a worshipper at Mount Smart Stadium. That was 48 hours. The women's diabolical loss to the Titans, that was some of the craziest rugby league I've ever seen. I do love women's rugby league. I love women's sport in general, just specifically as a observer of rugby league. That was diabolical. There were a couple times where there were 3 markers, players not listening to the referee. All sorts of crazy rugby league shit was going on in the women's loss to the Titans. And then the men sucked in their loss to the Titans. So the 48 hours at Mount Smart Stadium, I think that might have been... Who did the Warriors lose to? That might have been the Raiders.
The Raiders game. It was the Raiders game.
So we had Auckland FC, then we had the Raiders loss. That was dark. That was the dark arts of Mount Smart Stadium. As far as a 5-hour window, 2 losses to the Titans, that was pretty dark as well. So we'll get into a bit of that. I don't want to dwell on it because it was terrible. But 29,148 people for the A-League semi-final. The Derby in Auckland, A-League Derby, 27,000. Then the Raiders lost, 26,500. Panthers lost 25,000. And the Titans crowd was 24,200, which was 100 people exactly more than the Tigers game. So they did win that Tigers game. And the Warriors are really awesome at Mount Smart Stadium if the crowd is between 20,000 and 24,115. Anything over 24,115 at Mount Smart Stadium, the Warriors suck. They got losses to the Raiders, Panthers, and now the Titans. As someone who is partial to Tanah Boyd, and we're holding on to that, for now. As someone who is partial to Tanner Boyd, I'll add that I don't think Luke Metcalf. I think Luke Metcalf played against the Raiders and the Panthers, so he was also present in those home losses in front of big crowds. But yes, 3 biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year. The Warriors have lost all 3 of those games. And you hear it a lot, especially from the Australian rugby league media. Warriors, if they can finish top 4, get a home finals run, because if you're top 4, I think you go 2 games, 2 home finals games. That is meant to be a really, really good thing for the Warriors. There is no evidence to suggest it is a good thing right now. Because if you get over 25,000, the 2 games that has happened this season against good opposition, the Warriors have lost both of those games. And the Warriors, I think they were the home game for the trip to the greatest nation in the world, America. So that might skew their stats, but the Warriors have exactly the same record home and away, 6-3. So there's no evidence to suggest the Warriors are better at Mount Smart Stadium. So just keep that in mind as we're zoning in on the top 4. Because it won't be better, but I think it is something the Warriors folks have to ponder, which means that I have been thinking about this over the last 48 hours. There is a chance that the Warriors do slip out of the top 4. You got the Panthers coming in hot. I poked fun at them earlier in the season. They've been firing. We'll talk about some of their Kiwi NRL players in a jiffy. You've got who knows what the Broncos will do. The Sharks are on the hunt. The Dolphins are on the hunt, and the Warriors host the Dolphins this week. So we'll learn more about this over the weekend. But based on the fact that the Warriors aren't really that good at Mount Smart Stadium in front of big crowds, it's not the worst situation if they slip outside the top 4. Either way, you're going to have to win some really tough games of rugby league. But the whole idea of finishing top 4 is you get that home advantage, and I do not believe there is a home advantage right now for the Warriors, which is crazy to say because there's so many great fans, all different shapes and sizes, cultural backgrounds. The fans are so invested in worshipping at the Temple of Mount Smart, as are Auckland FC's Blue Rider supporting nation. And the Warriors just stink it up at Mount Smart for those fans. It's a very strange predicament that the Warriors have found themselves in. And I mean, that loss to the Titans sucked. The women's loss to the Titans sucked. But shout out to Big Foz, Kieran Foran. He was immense. There was an NRL.com story about Kieran Foran, and that dude loves Aotearoa. So anyone who loves Aotearoa, I love you. Kieran Foran, I think we are pushing towards a fairy tale finish with the New Zealand Kiwis, so that would be awesome if it does happen. And also, similar mana, especially for the half Pākehā, half Palangi rugby league player variety, Georgia Hale leading the Titans women to a victory at her former home ground, Mount Smart Stadium as well. So lots to digest there. You got any quick thoughts about my rant to start us off?
Quick thoughts. I did check that. I think the Raiders were classed as the home team for the Vegas game because the Warriors have lost at home to Panthers, Raiders, and whoever it was in the weekend, Titans. So that's their 3 home losses. So the other Raiders one must have been an away one. The
Magic Round.
I
think they were the home game against the Dolphins at Magic Round,
which they won, didn't they?
Yes. So that's so we could say they're 5-3 at Mount Smart Stadium.
Yeah,
maybe not Mount Smart, maybe just Aotearoa because can't go back throughout the whole draw right now.
Yeah, I can't remember. They might have had whatever. Um, and it's Dolphins this weekend, isn't it? And it is currently, can probably even hear it on the microphone a little bit, but pouring with rain where I am. I'm assuming pouring with rain where you are. Sounds like pouring with rain everywhere across the country on this Tuesday. And is that a Friday night game? Am I right there? Friday night at Go Media Stadium at 8 p.m. So that's only 3 days away, and it's pouring with rain right now. What I'm saying is, I don't think they'll get 26,000 people to Mount Smart if the weather's crap all week, you know? That might be a good thing for the Warriors. Keep it below that little buffer so that they can win that game. But also, maybe the actual pertinent point of that is I kind of like the idea of the Warriors playing finals games on the road a little bit more anyway. I think the style of how they play, where they're very good at like absorbing, pouncing in the last 15, 20 minutes, capitalizing on mistakes from other teams, where on the weekend it was a weird one because they were the team that kept making mistakes. They were the team that kept giving away like six agains and little fumbles when they got over halfway and things like this, whereas the Titans were just, especially second half, completion after completion after completion after completion. Like they kind of flipped the script on the Warriors there. But I think that style, it almost works better away when that other team has the pressure and the expectation of being the home side in a finals game like that. So it's too much of a stretch to call that an advantage, because you'd still rather be playing at home. You've got the whole week of preparation, which is just going to be much easier to do when you are in a home game and you got those familiar conditions. But I don't know that it's a disadvantage either. I don't know that that's something that necessarily has to it'll be presented that way, no doubt, especially if it's the Warriors slipping out of the top four, which like you pointed out, there could happen. Don't know what happened to the Panthers, but they're on a roll right now. The Broncos, if they hadn't been turned over by the Eels, which they almost weren't, like there's some late drama in that one, they'd only have been 2 points behind the Warriors in that case. So they're certainly not safe where they are. They're going to have to consolidate that with a bunch of wins throughout the rest of the season. But I don't know if they find themselves playing away finals games. I don't know if that's it's like I don't know if that's a advantage, but I don't know if it's a disadvantage either for the type of team that they are and the style that they play.
Forecast is pretty good for later in the week. We just got this this whole weather bomb coming in. But as Isaiah Rashad said on I Shut You Down, Mama taught me better, can't count on neighbours, can't count on weather. So we'll have to wait and see for the weather, because those weather forecasts are always a bit iffy. Also, with what you're saying there about the Aussie finals, no disrespect to the worshippers at Mount Smart, I think the Aussie Warriors crowds are better. And I think you saw that for the Knights. Like, not only do the Warriors draw big crowds in Australia and boost the crowds for all the Aussie teams, but there's just a different vibe for the fans in Australia. Like, they actually they've got better chance. Like, it's just straight up that Knights game, there were drums going, like not the Polynesian drums that have become such a large part of Mount Smart Stadium, but like dudes are in the crowd with a drum. And they, like in Christchurch, you get the ooh, ah, up the wahs. Right? You're getting that in Australia as well. In Australia, you get the Warriors. Both of those chants I heard in the Knights game. So if you're wondering how the Warriors were able to rally to get that victory, a big Warriors crowd helps that. But also, they're just way more funky. Like again, no disrespect to the worshippers at Mount Smart, because I am one of them, but the Aussie Warriors fans have way better chants and musical activity. That needs to be said, because there's literally no chance at Mount Smart Stadium. Like there's not even I don't see the Spider-Men as much this season. The best you're going to get is Warriors, cha-cha-cha, Warriors, cha-cha-cha. And that doesn't really happen too often. But in Australia, you get either the goosebumpy Warriors, or you get the ooh ah up the wahs, which is just way more vibrant. So that's what I am. That's what I like about the Australian crowds for the Warriors, and don't get any of that at Mount Smart Stadium. So let's go Warriors. Couple losses outside the top four. Find the sweet spot for the crowds between 21,000 and 24,115. That's the sweet spot. Aussie games, that is the recipe for Warriors' success. But I don't want to see the Warriors lose, though. That's just weird. So, good stuff there. In our newsletter, the Monday newsletter, which is full of Aotearoa sporting information, thenichecache.substack.com, sign up to that. We've got a free section full of Aotearoa sporting information. We've also got the paid section full of Aotearoa sporting information. And you did a nice big deep dive into the Wellington Phoenix that we will discuss this podcast as well. But something that I was pondering about, like a connection between the Wellington Phoenix and the Warriors. You had something. I can't find the exact quote here. Here you go.
Well, it's not kicking penalties.
Yep. Oh, Tana Boyd, he's a good goal kicker. He's kicking his pins. No,
he
conversions.
missed the famous one the other day. But
yeah, conversions.
Conversions have been good.
Conversions.
Yeah, conversions have been good.
Although I do think he would be the best penalty taker for the Warriors in a game of soccer.
Yeah. There's probably not that much competition for that, but yeah, I think he would be.
Oh,
There's bound to be one of those front rowers, though, who'll just do the thing like where a centre-back takes a penalty in football in a shootout, and they'll just run up and smash it top corner. It's like, no pressure, perfect penalty, absolutely thump it, keeper's got no chance. You often get one or two of those in there, so someone's going to surprise us like that if that was the situation.
This is your quote from the Phoenix paragraphs in the paid section of our newsletter. A lot of the Knicks' angst stems from a perceived lack of transfer work, but they haven't lost too many players that need replacing. Now, this isn't a perfect takeaway from your quote there, but there's something that I've seen with the Warriors as well. Like, people seem to want Warriors signings. People seem to want Phoenix signings. There is a difference. The Phoenix have import spots that they basically need to fill unless they've got a team of New Zealand superstars to be competitive in the A-League, because all the other teams have quality imports as well. So you do need to make those signings. But my point here is that I'd say because of the quality of both development systems and based on what I have seen from both organizations, Warriors and Phoenix fans should expect more internal promotion, more internal development rather than signings. Yes, you're always going to make signings. The Warriors make signings, and the Warriors have actually they've signed Gannon from England. They've signed Jai Linane from Newcastle. But there's this thing with the Warriors especially, and I've seen it with the Phoenix because Olawayemi, he's an import goalkeeper who had to be comfortable being outside the first 11 last season. Nagasawa, he's an import who had to be comfortable outside the first 11 last season. The signings the Warriors make are either highly specialized, they have a need, they have a target, they go out and get that target, that style of player they want. But especially in the case of like Gannon and Linane, they will probably start New South Wales Cup. Because guess where Tana Boyd started? He started New South Wales Cup. So if you're assigning for the Warriors, you have to be comfortable working through the Warriors process to earn your NRL game time. If you're assigning for the Phoenix, if you're an import signing, it's unlikely that you go through that process, but there's team culture there. Same with the Warriors, because you're seeing it. Keilani going, Bunty Afoa, Tom Ale, Geronimo Doyle. What do they love to do? Play New South Wales Cup. Bunty Afoa, Tom Ale, they're not kicking up a fuss because they're not playing NRL. They're doing their best for the New South Wales Cup team every single week. Same with Nagasawa. Same with Olawayemi. Like, they're not having a sook because they're not first 11 A-League players. No, they cop it on the chin and they keep grinding. If you're signing with the Warriors and the Phoenix, you are joining those organizations because you're investing in that culture. And that culture at the Warriors and the Phoenix is about internal development, internal promotion. And we're seeing this now flow for the Phoenix because there's so many youngsters on the rise, and you're seeing with the Warriors because there's so many youngsters on the rise. And that means you can save money. You don't have to go out and sign a whole bunch of players. You promote from within. And any signing you do make understands the culture and the process of those organizations.
Yeah, and that was what I was setting up with that bit about the Phoenix not or the angst about them not making signings, which I don't even think is that accurate because they have made signings. They've only got one import spot left to fill. And like, because there were two phrases they used, and there was like internal promotion and internal development. I think last year we saw a lot of internal promotion. I think this year is when we start to see a bit more of that internal development. So we saw guys like Nathan Walker, Luke Brooks-Smith, Matt Sheridan. Matt Sheridan maybe slightly older. I think he doesn't necessarily, like, he might be a step or two ahead of this, but like quite a few of these younger players getting opportunities, which they maybe those opportunities came around a little bit earlier than expected because the team struggled a lot last season. And those, like, I think in almost across the board, those guys, while there was, like, I think Walker looked a lot better at the end of the season. I think you started to see him looking more comfortable. I think Sheridan, like I say, is a little bit different because I think he just sort of like him and Corbin Piper in particular, really. And Corbin Piper was signed from outside from Birkenhead. He's not a promoted academy player, but there is a parallel there to some extent in that case where, like, those two players just, they locked into these versatile get in where you kind of fit in roles where they're just playing different positions every week and doing a decent job in all of those. Like, there's a lot of promising signs and good stuff that you see in there. Like Luke Brooks-Smith is the team's youngest ever goal scorer. He got on the board there. But I suspect this season is when you actually see the benefits of the amount of football that those guys played last time. And from what I saw from Luke Brooks-Smith in that, we'll talk about this a bit later, I'd imagine, but from what I saw from Luke Brooks-Smith in the Aussie Cup game on Sunday night, he certainly looks like he's leveled up. And I think that is something you can take across the board. So you don't have to worry so much about a lack of trend. Like, well, you need to make your transfers. You need to fill out your import spots. You need to sign some good experienced locals. Like, certainly there, that thing is, I've heard Chiefy reiterating that idea again about trying to get a few more players in that sort of 23 to 28 age range. Like, so you're not just got guys at the start of the career, guys at the end of the career. You want some guys in the prime of their career as well. And filling things out like that, getting the right balance, et cetera, et cetera. But it can't be overlooked that this team, like, one of the main benefit of having a bunch of young players is that those guys have steeper kind of development curves. Like, they're not going to be the same. Like, Luke Brooks-Smith is not going to be the same player that we saw last season coming into this season. He's going to be better. There's a lot of guys that are in the same boat as that. And I think that is an element of the Wellington Phoenix's struggles from last year, where people are looking like, well, the same squad couldn't do anything last time. It's like, but it's not the same squad. It might be the same names, but it's not the same squad because you've got players who are going to be improving. And the Warriors are a extremely good example of that right now because you're looking at what Leka Halasima and Dimitri Faimunga and all these guys are doing at the moment. Like, they didn't debut yesterday. They debuted last season and possibly before in one or two of those cases. And they've had a little bit of time to adjust to what it means to be an NRL player, what it means to go through that sort of like the match day experience and all the things that we don't see as fans. Getting those rhythms in place, and then you start to see like, okay, well, now I know what is required of me. Now I know how I can live up to those requirements. And the performances of the young guys and the like those guys who have come through that New South Wales Cup team and are now playing NRL footy for the Warriors is essential to what they've been able to do and setting themselves up as a top 4 team this year. And I don't think the Phoenix quite have the same structure around them in terms of the quality of the rest of the squad quite yet. We'll see, because as I say, there's a few more signings to be made, but that is certainly a big part of any kind of optimism. And it doesn't just apply to the young players as well. It applies to guys like Ishige and Nagasawa as well, who, as imports coming into their second year in the A-League, they're going to be a lot more comfortable. They're going to have a better idea of what's required from them, and they're probably going to perform a whole lot better as well. There's no reason to think that they won't, basically.
Because we assess these pipelines almost on a weekly basis, but I think it's just an observation from us that these organizations are more likely to promote from within than to hit the market. And I think that is something that the Breakers are going to get into. They're going to develop more talent than signing players, although they did make a signing that we'll talk about very soon. Brockingham?
Yeah.
Brockhampton?
Brockhampton? I say Brock something or other.
Yeah, old Brock, who's the Ash Ketchum.
Yes.
I think like Auckland FC, they're going to do the same thing. So it's like these New Zealand franchises competing in Australian leagues right now, we have observed that they are far more invested in development of local talent than they have been previously. And when you are thinking about moves that are going to be made for each of these teams, the assumption I make in my head, even thinking Breakers, Auckland FC, is that those organizations are going to promote from within. I'm not looking around the NRL for a player that the Warriors can sign. I'm thinking about Iriaramia Toiava is going to debut soon. Kalis Fatialofa is going to debut soon. Sio Kelly is going to debut soon. Tain Tuapiki is going to play more NRL. Samuel Healey is primed to be the next dummy half. And if something happens to him, you got Makaya Tafua right there. These are how these organizations are operating. It's far more sustainable than splashing the cash in the market. It's better use of the salary cap, but it has taken a lot of hard work and a lot of self-reflection, maybe self-awareness, to develop these development systems. And it's pretty awesome that we've got to this point now where I trust each of these organizations to develop the talent and have a constant supply of players into their top-tier premier squads.
Yeah, and there's different ways that can look as well, because I think the Breakers already are doing that to some extent, because we've seen this off-season, Carlin Davidson goes from a development player to a fully rostered player. That creates room for another development player who hopefully they will use that spot, sign another decent youngster of a similar caliber from out of the NZNBL, because there's a few of those going around that they could do that. And then you hope that he will follow that same path in a couple of years. Maybe Carlin Davidson goes overseas and then that other player steps up and takes a senior roster spot. Max Darling last year went from a development player to a senior roster spot under a previous regime. So perhaps it was more like a here you go, you can have it then kind of thing to the fans when everyone was complaining about the not signing Kiwi players. But Max Darling then took that opportunity with some good performances, especially early on in the season. Like he lived up to that. So there's quite a few. Like Kaya Isaac is still there as a DP. Alex McNaught is still there as a DP. So there's certainly pathways there for the Breakers, and this is even before they reignite their sort of their local academy type coaching stuff, which they've said they're going to do, which the previous regime dismantled, but the current one is going to bring back.
Let's just take a moment of mindfulness before we swing back around to some basketball. What do you have for this glorious Tuesday?
Okay, what I've got is a line from a letter that Sigmund Freud wrote to Carl Jung. Don't know when, but apparently they kept a bit of correspondence going, and Mr. Freud wrote to Mr. Jung, "One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful." So I do think sometimes people have this tendency to like glorify the struggle stuff, where sometimes it's a little bit more about like sacrifice than it is about beauty. Like, you do the hard stuff now so you can benefit later on. But certainly within that quote is the idea that it's like it's all part of the same journey. I think that is unfortunately extremely relatable, but also like it's true, it's right. It is all part of you. You don't really get one without the other. You gotta put the work in.
And I have heard Andrew Webster and the Warriors talk about this, where about trying to learn when you're winning. And it is possible. When you're a big Donny, when you're cruising along, this is more in a personal sense rather than the Warrior sense, but you're feeling great. You got this and that, these things are popping off for you. You just had this achievement, the sun's shining, you're feeling good. It is possible to learn in those moments. But it's way better, well, not better because you lost, but it's way more effective and efficient, as I like to say, to learn when you're losing, because there's that, it's just easier to learn when you're losing. You've been humbled in the truest sense of the word, not like, oh, it's a humbling experience. It is a genuinely humbling experience. You have been
really
humbled.
Humbling for me when I got drafted into the NBA this morning. It was really humbling. The NBA draft drove me nuts watching that the other week for that exact reason.
You have been humbled, so you need to learn something. If you don't learn something, you'll lose again. And that's what came to mind for me, because it's a light and dark thing, and the darkness and the struggle and the journey to get to where you want to is where you learn the most. And that's where it's like the hero's journey type of thing. And the thing that I've been thinking a lot about, very important, is like the Lord of the Rings, when they're on the journey, the fellowship's on the journey, and each stage of the journey, they have some sort of, trial or tribulation, some sort of obstacle they need to overcome, some sort of learning that happens through a failure or a struggle. And Gandalf, he only becomes Gandalf the White Wizard, by fighting some sort of mega demon and falling into the abyss of those inner mountains and disappearing for, I'm not sure on the exact timeline of the Fellowship's journey, but what feels like weeks, because everyone else goes off on their journey. They kind of mourn Gandalf, and then Gandalf reappears as Gandalf the White. But he only becomes the White Wizard because he did what he had to do against that demon, falling down. In the movie, they portray it as like him falling down, he's fighting him, falling down, and all that shit. And if we continue our themes, A Song of Ice and Fire, many people, this is not necessarily part of the mindfulness, but it is kind of similar. There's these moments throughout the whole stories on all these great novels and whatever, fantasies and lives. There's lots of small moments, but many are prophesizing about the prophecies that Jon Snow, I think this actually happened in the TV show, that Jon Snow needs to kill Daenerys to then kill and destroy the White Walkers. I don't think that's actually got anything to do with what we're talking about, but it just popped in my mind, the sacrifice that you need to make to save the world. Well, that's cool, but yeah, I don't know what I'm saying at this stage.
That did happen in the TV show. I remember him stabbing her in front of the throne. But also everything in their last season of the TV show felt extremely rushed and hard to remember. So it's, we'll see what happens when the books ever get finished. Yeah.
Well, just repeat the mindfulness. Good. Repeat it again so we can give me a focus point, because I'm skitzing out.
I shall. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful.
Some would say that the sacrifice is the most beautiful moment as well.
Yeah, I almost like that better. We might have to dig up Sigmund Freud and let him know. You got it wrong, buddy. You're looking too much for beauty where we should be looking a bit more for, like, I don't know, humility. Yeah, humility, the most misunderstood word, and certainly in the sporting realms. Maybe in all of the realms.
It is strange how people who lack humility may misuse the term being humble. That does seem quite strange. But shout out to everyone who's humble. Shout out to everyone who is finding the beauty in their struggle. How about that one? Because you will be better off for this moment of darkness. You will find a way out. You will find the light. And then you will reflect on it and be like, damn, that's where I leveled up. That's where I took my vitamins. That's where I went to the hyperbolic time chamber and really became stronger, wiser, and better. That's where you did the work to get to where you want to be. So shout out to you. Shout out to Jackson Ball. And this is a interesting connection to the Breakers, because Jackson Ball has signed a development deal with the Illawara Hawks. And as you titled our newsletter yesterday, Hawks to Hawks, Jackson Ball, is he still 17 years old?
Yep, he is, because he only just turned 17 at the start of the NBL season. So that hasn't been a year.
17-year-old Jackson Ball has signed a development deal with the Illawara Hawks. He is from the Hawke's Bay Hawks. So that's just cool for starters. But there's a few wrinkles here. So why didn't the New Zealand Breakers sign Jackson Ball, who is one of the best young players in New Zealand? I think Olgun tweeted, and I don't want to harp on this one because it's something that I do too much of, is like, well, I don't know if that's true. You see it like from various media people, and especially New Zealand media people or international people talking about New Zealand.
That's the worst, but yeah.
He said Jackson Ball's like our best NBA prospect. I was like, I don't know, because I mean,
I saw the same thing, and I'm like, I don't even know if he's top 3.
Because we got Julius Halafanoa, the Docker. We got Goodman's pretty good. Hayden Jones is pretty good. I mean, there's dudes who are actually on the fringe of NBA fringiness, like they're playing in the summer league. There's a lot of NBA prospects. How about that? New Zealand has multiple young basketballers who may find their way to the NBA, but Jackson Ball's really good. Why wasn't he? Why weren't the Breakers in this mix? If we're talking about the Breakers being a development organization, well, they don't have the connection to Jackson Ball. And this is the same thing with about that I've been following with the rugby league. Why doesn't this player from New Zealand sign with the Warriors? Well, because they might have got a better offer to go to the Roosters, to go to the Broncos, to go to the Sharks. Like, Warriors only have so many spots available, and there are 16 other clubs in Australia who have those opportunities as well, and they may have better opportunities. So I've been thinking about that with rugby league for a long time, and we're starting to see it with the basketball, because the Breakers, like, you've got Kiwis signing to Aussie teams, and then people are like, wow, the Breakers, why don't they sign them? Well, they may not have development spots available, and they may not have the personal connection to Jackson Ball, because Jackson Ball's Hawke's Bay Hawks coach is an assistant coach with the Illawara Hawks. So it makes a lot of sense for him to get a development opportunity working under a coach he knows very well. The other thing is, you've been telling me Jackson Ball, he's off to college in America. But as you typed out in the newsletter, he is going to be a Hawks, he's going to be a Illawara Hawks player before he goes to college. Is that correct? Because we've got a lot, because that got me thinking, wait, so why doesn't Halai Whanua come back and play NBL, Australian NBL, around his college commitments? Why doesn't Oscar Goodman, come back and play Australian NBL around his college commitments? Well, they're in a different situation at Jackson Ball, because Jackson Ball is a year away from going to college, and before that, he's going to be playing NBL basketball, maybe, because he's just on a development deal.
Yeah, I think he'll get some minutes. I think he's that good that he will he'll see some court time, whether that's just sort of like garbage timey stuff to begin with. That's often how development players do get their minutes to begin with their NBL careers, so that's to be expected. Yeah, that's the thing with him, is he's going to Wisconsin. He's going to be a teammate of Hayden Jones's there. They're going to be working under one of the assistant coaches there, who is Kirk Penny. It's a fantastic situation for him. But he's actually a year younger than Hayden Jones. He was the youngest player in the New Zealand under-19s World Cup squad recently. Like, he was the youngest guy in that squad. Other guys, I mean, like, I can think of an example like Tane Murray did this a few years back. He had a development year with the Breakers before he went to college in the United States. Like, it was a simple thing. He wasn't there to be a long-term Breakers sort of senior player. He was there to have 1 year before you go to college. And he's currently he's top of mind because he's currently in the wider Tall Black squad at the moment, having come back and signed with the Brisbane Bullets, not the Breakers. But they, like, most of those guys, Julius Halai-Whanua already started his college career. He played like 7 games last year for Georgetown, but he got injured, so he hardly played. So he didn't play much, but he has already, like, he's had his first season. Most of the rest of them are sort of 18, 19 now, so they're coming into the upcoming season is when they're going to be beginning. I think Oscar Goodman was over there already last year, but he redshirted the first year so that it wasn't like, so that he could, like, get to, I don't know exactly what the situation was, but I imagine it was to, like, get to grips with the college scene, settle in, but don't worry about wasting a year of eligibility first when we've got a bigger role for you next year, and you can sort of, like, prioritize that where you're going to be really good, like, good to go from the beginning. Yeah, most of those other guys in that under-19s team have college deals. Most of them will be starting for the upcoming, like, in like 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is, when the 2025-2026 season begins. Most of them will be cracking in then. but not Jackson Ball because he's still only 17 years old and he only turned 17 a couple months ago. So he'll be he is a 2026 well, what do you call it, recruit. He had a year to kill. What are you going to do with a year to kill? You want to hang around, play video games, hang out, sit around at home. Maybe like he might have, like, he could have done that, or just played another year with the Hawke's Bay Hawks. I expect he probably will play another year with the Hawke's Bay Hawks next year anyway. See if you can get in maybe a Tall Black squad or something like that. See what you can do, but it makes more sense if you're going all out for the basketball career. It makes more sense. Try get an Aussie team, be that the Breakers or somewhere else, and have a year as a DP. And yeah, why wasn't it the Breakers? Well, this does tie into the one criticism of the Breakers bringing back the Kiwi core, is that they did miss out on someone like Tane Murray. Maybe a Niwa Tate Jones might be available now that he's finished his summer league stuff, but he'd only be able to be a DP because they've filled out their main roster spot, and I think he could probably get a proper a full contract somewhere else, potentially not even in Australia. I think maybe he'll just go to Europe or something like that. And it's the G League beckons. I don't know how those kind of things work. We'll see. He didn't actually get hardly any minutes during summer league with Toronto, so that didn't work out quite as well as I would have hoped. But they didn't sign Tane Murray, who was the best college graduate who has signed an NBL contract. They didn't get Flynn Cameron, who was the best available Kiwi free agent. They didn't get Jackson Ball, who was probably the best available development player. There's a few of those ones where it's like it's great to see them bringing back old players and boosting up guys like Taylor Britt, Carlin Davidson to bigger contracts, or senior contracts for the first time. In the case of Britt, who'd only been a development player previously in his Perth Wildcats stint earlier in his years. But maybe the Breakers haven't quite landed the best available New Zealanders in any of those positions yet, but we'll see how they perform and see how things go. But that is the criticism of their strategy, is maybe they haven't got like the top targets.
The Warriors don't have all the best New Zealand rugby league players.
That's true.
Wellington Phoenix and Auckland FC don't have all the best New Zealand soccer players.
Not even the best ones in the A-League necessarily.
Exactly. Like, it's unrealistic to think that the Breakers are going to sign the best players from New Zealand. So I don't really care for that argument.
No, and that is the counterpoint to that idea, is that did you think they were just going to sign Flynn Cameron, Shea Ali, like all of these guys? Of course not. And I still think the Breakers are putting together a very good team. I like the look of that roster. They've signed their second import now. They've gotten rid of Taco Fall, so that clears up a very good thing. And true to that idea we're talking about with the Warriors, with the Phoenix, there's internal development on offer here as well, because Sam Meninga in particular has been amazing playing in he was playing in Puerto Rico, I think it was, until he went over and played some summer league with the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, he's coming into a massive season. He already looked like he was going to have that massive season last year until they signed Taco Fall and just absolutely screwed up his spot in the rotation, and everything got very wonky for him. Like, no one suffered more on an individual role than Sam Meninga did from that whole move. So that's been cleared up. No doubt he's coming in for a massive season, and he probably will be he could easily be one of the 2 or 3 best New Zealanders performing in the NBL next season. Like, in fact, he maybe should be. Like, there's Tyrell Harrison and Shea Ali you'd expect to be at the top. Sam Wardenberg is someone else who's in there. Flynn Cameron, maybe if he has a big breakthrough season, having moved to Adelaide. Like, there's competition there. There's some very good players out there, but Sam Meninga should be up amongst them. That's the sort of caliber we should be talking about with him. And we're expecting Carlin Davidson to break through, hopefully, this season, now that he's got a potentially bigger role with the Breakers as well. Like, that's still a really nice team that they have there. And I'm sure they tried to sign Jackson Ball. We know they tried to sign Flynn Cameron. Don't know if they had a spot necessarily for Tane Murray, so I think that's not so much one that got away as just someone who signed in a better situation somewhere else. The Breakers didn't really have need for him because they'd already signed Isaiah Liafa at that point. I think I can't remember the timelines, but yes, from Jackson Ball's perspective, he's not an Aucklander. You know, he's from Napier. He's a Hawke's Bay kid, like born and bred. So he would be, and he's 17, so it's probably the first time he's moving away from home or anything like that. It's probably the first time he's lived in another part of the country. I don't know, but it's already going to be a big shuffle for him to move to Auckland. Not that different to him moving to Illawara. You know, that does. I don't think that necessarily, just because it's in the same country, it's also in the same league. I don't know if that necessarily counts as something where the Breakers had an advantage there to try and sign him. They do have the Kiwi connection, and they do have a few guys here to played with in Tall Blacks camps. Some guys here had no fear relatively well. But the Hawke's Bay Hawks, yes, they have Sam Gruggan. He was the head coach of the Hawks, where Jackson Ball was outstanding throughout the season. Some of that was before Gruggan arrived, before his Australian sort of contributions ended, and he wasn't there at the very start of the NBL season, but Jackson Ball kept it up the whole way through, so no dramas there. And Gruggan is an assistant with the Illawara Hawks. And not only that, there is another connection because Luca Yates also played the season with the Hawks, with Hawke's Bay. And he is, well, he's just debuted for the Tall Blacks a couple of days ago as well. He is born in Christchurch, but raised in Townsville, but is a development player for Illawara. But he's also done the Hawks to Hawks, back and forth there too. So he's got an existing teammate who he's played a lot more with than he would have played with any of those guys in the Tall Blacks, outside of maybe some of his age grade guys like Hayden Jones or fellas like that. But none of them are playing for the Breakers. None of them are playing for Illawara. So that's irrelevant to this point. The Hawke's Bay Hawks just had a better, more fitting kind of offer for him, and that's why he's gone there. And that is what we want to see, because the Breakers are going to sign someone else for that development player spot. So if Jackson Ball goes to an Australian team, that clears up. Someone else gets an opportunity now that otherwise might have been taken by Jackson Ball if he'd gone to the Breakers and Illawara had just signed another Australian in that role. There's just the more New Zealanders sign with Australian teams, same as in all of these competitions that we talk about, the more that sign with Australian teams, the more that get opportunities, because the Kiwi teams are still signing someone else with that spot on their roster.
And most importantly, as we talked about earlier, we have faith in this Breakers regime that they actually love New Zealand basketball talent. Exactly. So I believe they're going to sign more New Zealand players as opposed to the last regime where there was no evidence to suggest that they watched any basketball in New Zealand. We do have the Tall Blacks preparing for their Asia Cup. They had a loss against Brazil. Then they had a win against Guangdong, which is a local Chinese team. But then this morning, shout out to Tony O'Connor, who's tracking these matters for the Tall Blacks, because these aren't like super official games. These are warm-up, exhibition-y tour games that we know very well from cricket. The Tall Blacks did have a 89-82 win over Montenegro, who are ranked higher than the Tall Blacks in international basketball. We'll keep the spotlight on the Asia Cup, but just as far as preparations for the Asia Cup goes, do you have any key observations, any key nuggets from these games for the Tall Blacks, aside from learning about Luca Yates?
Yeah, well, I haven't learned much about Luca Yates because they the games have been live streamed, but they've only been live streamed. So unless I wanted to stay up till midnight and watch them, which I didn't on any of these occasions, then because I assumed that they would have like replays available, a bit of on-demand stuff, which just doesn't seem to be the case. However, I did find like a 10-minute highlights package of the Guangdong game, which was nice because I got to see a fair bit of that one from that and take some lessons from that, which I chucked into the newsletter. So didn't see Jordan Ngatai in that game, didn't see Toi Smith-Milner in that game, and I don't believe they played the Brazil game either. Also didn't see Max Darling in the second game, but I think he did play against Brazil. So don't know about the Montenegro game, but it sounds like those guys were all back. It sounds like they had just probably the strongest team that they've played throughout those games, and they got a really good result. And they thrashed Guangdong as well, so that was a big win. It was actually fairly close, sort of up until midway through the second quarter, and then Carla Davison and Flynn Cameron kind of inspired a bit of a tearaway, and then they never looked back from there. They got blown out in the first half against Brazil, like absolutely blown out. But they actually won the second half. Like they outscored them in the third and fourth quarters. So outside of that, it seems like they've put together like two and a half pretty good performances for what is a Tall Blacks team missing a lot of the more regular players. We've had debuts for Mojave King has debuted. We've had Luka Yates is another one. I think Jack Andrew was probably on debut, and Dante Russo-Nance is the other one. Dante Russo-Nance, I think, sat out the Montenegro game. So obviously you can't play everyone at once. So people are going to have to, a little bit of ins and outs along the way. But seems like they're gelling pretty quickly there. And I mean, those are some good signs heading into an Asia Cup, which is when they actually, that's the stuff that matters. That's the tournament they're preparing for here. There is probably the main fascination of how this like China leg of this tour goes is how is the element of you got Luke Yates, Jordan Hunt, and Hayden Jones, who are all there as training, well, not training players, but they're only there for this part of the tour. But one of them will be promoted to be the 12th man, the final guy on the roster for the Asia Cup. So those three guys are kind of competing for that. I don't think necessarily competing head to head so much as maybe like which one of those positions do the Tall Blacks most need. But from what I saw from those highlights against the Chinese team, like Hayden Jones is the youngest guy in the squad, and I don't think he would look out of place in the Asia Cup. I think he looked pretty awesome. There was defensive plays as well as offensive plays. He's a good versatile player who can cover a bunch of positions. So leaning towards that, but we'll see, because they might just decide they want someone bigger, and then Luka Yates gets that spot. Especially if I don't know if Toe Smith Milner was dealing with an injury, if it was just rested, more likely just rested, but. Especially because he went a little bit deeper in the NZNBL than most of the other guys that are around did. So actually so did Ngatai, so that would make sense. Maybe why those two skipped the first couple of games was just a little bit of extra rest. But if there is maybe some kind of fitness issue, then maybe you start to think we need the extra big man there. But no, these seem to be pretty promising signs from the Tall Blacks as they build towards their Asia Cup. That's the first of like three legs. The Asia Cup being the third leg. This was the little, they call it the Solidarity Cup in Guangzhou. Next, they move to Shenzhen, I think, and somewhere else in China, where they play this like it's called a Four Nations tournament. And I know we play Brazil again in the first game, but I don't know who the other two nations are. It didn't say it in Basketball New Zealand's press release. They just said against another TBD team. So, like, I assumed China would be one of those teams, but then looking at their thing, it seems like they might have other games. Like, it seems like they have their team is in camp somewhere else preparing for the same Asia Cup. So maybe it'll be them, maybe it won't. We don't seem to know. I guess we'll find out on the day. But that's coming up next. There's two more games in China before then they head to Saudi Arabia for the Asia Cup itself, which is next week.
I do feel the same thing that of when you talk about the All Whites or the football ferns, feel like it's something similar with the Tall Blacks, where it's evident in the rugby league as well. It's definitely evident in the cricket, but it does seem a little bit more. And this is something that now I'm connecting the dots, was definitely the case for the Tall Ferns. It's just good to have more athletes playing for New Zealand, right? So there's just a lot of games, I feel like, for the Tall Blacks, and that means we've got more basketball players playing international basketball. Like, whether it's against Guangdong, whether it's against Brazil, whether it's against Montenegro, whoever it's against, you're playing international basketball for New Zealand. Maybe not international basketball if you're playing against Guangdong, but you're playing games for New Zealand, and the more players we can have playing for New Zealand, the better the depth is going to be. That's reflecting on the Tall Ferns. Really important stuff happening there. Yes, you might not have your full strength teams, but you've got more players getting that experience. Think about the Tri-Series that we'll talk about soon. 17 players played those T20s. 21 players have played T20s this year for New Zealand. Those are just good things to have, so when you call upon someone, they are ready to contribute, because not only do they have international experience, but they have experience in that environment with that, because I've got no idea how a Tall Blacks tour operates, right? Like the logistics, getting paid, eating right when you're traveling through these strange countries, all that stuff you need to learn about. It's same with NRL, and we'll come into NRL discussion now. The NRL thing is, how do you perform 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 every single week when you're hurt, when you're tired, when you've got issues at home, when you're traveling to Australia every second week or every third week? How do you smash your body? Because that's what happens. You're smashing, every time you smash someone else, you're smashing yourself. How do you do that and then show up again next week? How do you, as the Tall Ferns, they're more semi-professional. Unfortunately, less than that. How do you then tour the world and play international basketball games with all of that stuff happening? These are things you need to learn. These are things you need to experience, and then you can learn from your experiences. You can learn from your struggles and your darkness to perform better, more consistently, and so on. The Warriors, NRL team. I'll start with a broad point. The Warriors have 2 losable games coming up. The men are hosting the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are pretty good. It's a losable game for the Warriors because there's no home advantage. So that doesn't matter. Dolphins are decent. That is a losable game for the Warriors. The women, they are playing the Cowboys. Magic round in Newcastle for the NRLW. Very losable game for the women because the Cowboys are awesome. My favourite Cowboys, Wahine, we got Abigail Roach at centre. Richmond Jr. from Auckland, sister of Nate Roach, Paul Roach. One of the best, to me, one of the best outside backs in Women's Rugby League, and part of a very illustrious group of outside backs available to the Kiwi Ferns. And you've also got Rosie Kelly, who's talked about this before. She's moved into the halves. She's doing some good stuff in the halves for the Cowboys, adding to the Kiwi Ferns depth there. Cowboys are coached by Ricky Henry, who's the Kiwi Ferns coach. The Warriors, women, are also... Now, this is... I'll have to frame this as top 2 worst teams. Because it's like... they're at the bottom for a few stats and they're at the top for a few stats. In both cases, they're bad. So we'll say top 2 worst for possession, for line breaks, for missed tackles, and penalties conceded. That's a recipe for losing rugby league games. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the women perform against a good Cowboys team. Like, I don't think the Cowboys women are on the same level as the Broncos, Knights, and Roosters. And I went through those teams, those best teams. because Kelly and Roach, they are very good, and I think they'll play for the Kiwi Ferns. Roach always plays for the Kiwi Ferns. I think Kelly's going to bolster the Kiwi Ferns halves depth. The 3 best teams in NRLW, I've got 10 NRL wahine across those 3 teams. The Roosters have Amber Hall. The Broncos, we've got Kerri Johnson from Kaikoui. Mele Hofunga, who is... The Broncos aren't relying as much on Mele Hofunga right now for their attacking impetus, which is very exciting because Mele Hofunga is just doing her job. The Broncos don't need her for all the line breaks and the tries that she used to score, but she's doing a job defensively. She's just playing a role in that Broncos left edge, which has Kerri Johnson left wing, Mele Hofunga left centre, Gail Broughton in the halves. Gail Broughton, who is averaging over 100 kicking metres for the first time in her NRLW career. And that's coincided with Ali Brigginshaw, the Broncos halfback. She's got a decrease in her kicking metres. So clear connection there. The Broncos are doing more kicking with Gail Broughton, less kicking with Ali Brigginshaw. The Broncos also have Brianna Clark, who would actually dominate the rugby league players taking penalty kicks in soccer because she used to be a football player in Australia. And she does the goal kicking for the Broncos women's team. We've got Anita Nu'uasala, who has already started to play for Samoa, so she'll keep playing for Samoa, but she's an NRL wahine. Amber Hall for the Roosters, we've got Shanice Parker, Tenika Willison, Tiana Davison, and Grace Kukutai for the Knights. Shanice Parker, Kiwi Ferns veteran. Tenika Willison is another very, very good outside back, cousin of Xavier Willison, and I think they're cousins with Te Maire Martin and Taintua Piki as well. Tenika Willison's awesome, centre, winger, but she's playing centre this season, but she, Kiwi Ferns, if you can play centre or wing, you're more chance of being selected, but, just in these 10 players, we got Kerri Johnson, Mele Hofunga, Willison, Shanice Parker, and then Abigail Roach for the Cowboys as well. 5 outside backs right there in the top 3 teams. Top 3 plus Cowboys. Tiana Davison, sister of Carlin Davison. She's awesome in the middle for the Knights. And Grace Kukutai is on the bench. She's a very good utility as well. I did write in the newsletter yesterday my 3 favorite Kiwi Ferns new players to the Kiwi Ferns mix, and they are Tenika Willison, Rosie Kelly, and Kerri Johnson. None of whom have played for the Kiwi Ferns yet. All 3 of them will play for the Kiwi Ferns. I'm pretty confident about that. If not this year, next year. And this is the growth of Aotearoa Women's Rugby League. Back to the Warriors women. They're going to the Cowboys. Cowboys, they also have Haley J. Ormond Monsell and Najvada George. Najvada. She played for the Kiwi Ferns last year as well. So all 4 of the Cowboys wahine have played for the Kiwi Ferns. Warriors men. I can't lie. Early in that game against the Titans, I was thinking... oh gosh. It's embarrassing to say. I was thinking the Warriors might be able to run it up and help out the old points difference.
I don't think you were alone there, though, to be fair.
That's crazy.
I was on a group chat with someone messaged, at around about the time the Warriors were 10-0 up, and, joking at someone else who must have had a laugh about betting against the Warriors and saying, hey, when's a good time to put that bet on against the Warriors? And then 10 minutes later, someone else was like, now? Maybe now?
that did spark something, because there are a lot, like, you see, we've got some betting companies in Aotearoa. And one of those ads for the betting companies, Aaron Clark, like, blatantly leaves Roger Tuivasa's check hanging. And I was like, surely you could have recorded that again, like, maybe that was just weird. But there's a lot of these betting ads about the Warriors. And then obviously during the games, around the games, you need to have all these sorts of bets and stuff going on. And the multis, which are just as bad as the parlays, and so on and so forth. Surely I'm not alone in one of my major lessons following sport for 20, 30 years. Don't bet on the Warriors. I don't gamble because I don't have money to gamble. And if I did, I would not bet on the Warriors. So anyone betting on the Warriors, you're a savage and you probably need to look after yourself. But yeah, that, like, it's too simple because the Titans were really good. They might have fought their way into that game. But I don't think it's a surprise or a shock that the Warriors looked awesome when Wade Egan was on the field. Wade Egan leaves the field and the Warriors start to look rather poo. Wade Egan played 13 minutes for the Warriors against the Titans. And he had 3 dummy half runs for 26 meters in 13 minutes. That's a lot. And it showed how effective Wade Egan is around the ruck. And we've talked about this before, my little gap theory with the Warriors. In the first gap, the Warriors target, no surprises, is the gap behind the ruck. And the Warriors' attack diminished when Wade Egan left the field because they didn't have a running dummy half threat. Many wouldn't view Wade Egan as a running dummy half threat because he's not fast. But he had 3 dummy half runs, almost averaging 30 meters per dummy half run in 13 minutes. The only other player with a dummy half run in that game was Chanel Harris-Tavita, and he had 2. Which can basically, I think he spent like maybe almost the second half at dummy half. Wade Egan had more dummy half runs in 13 minutes than the rest of the Warriors combined in 80 minutes. So I think that's a pretty clear example of why Wade Egan is important to the Warriors. And I don't think he's going to be playing this game because of the HIA rules, but the Warriors do have Sam Healey, who has been playing in New South Wales Cup. He's a more vibrant, he's a funkier attacking presence. He's a bigger body, I think, but he's got more offloading. Maybe he doesn't have the crisp, because that's the other thing about Wade Egan. He's delivering spiral passes in both directions that are incredibly crisp. I don't know if Sam Healey's got that, but Sam Healey is a very creative attacking dummy half. He's got at least 1 tackle break in every single New South Wales Cup game this season. He's had at least 20 kicking meters in his last 5 games. And he is averaging, let's do some quick math here, 21 offloads in 13 games. That's an offload a game. I can't say it's almost
12.5 a game.
Yeah, 1.5 offloads a game, roughly, because that's all off the top of the dome. So if you have Sam Healey at dummy half, then I think you're getting back to the recipe for success with the Warriors. But like, I mean, that's crazy. Wade Egan had 3 dummy half runs in 13 minutes. The rest of the team combined had 2 in 80 minutes. So that shows you how important dummy halves are in the NRL. And the Warriors are equipped. They've got Sam Healey right there. And Sam Healey is going to provide that attacking spark out of dummy half if he does start at dummy half or play dummy half in this week against the Dolphins. Then we get to New South Wales Cup Warriors. And they had a big win over the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs, they are last in New South Wales Cup. They're 5-15. The Warriors are 18-1. So the Rabbitohs aren't very good. And the Warriors are really good. The Warriors have now won. Let me get up the precise detail. They have won 4 games in a row without Te Maire Martin and Tana Boyd. So earlier in the season, it was all like, oh, Te Maire Martin, he's too good for New South Wales Cup. Unfortunately, Tana Boyd's now lost a game this season, so shout out to him.
Oh, yeah.
But he was at some point, Tana Boyd, he was too good for New South Wales Cup. And it was kind of like, oh, the Warriors have NRL caliber players in New South Wales Cup. That's why they're dominating. Because they are dominating. But now we're seeing that this team just keeps winning without those players. They've won games without Sam Healey as well, because Micaiah Tafua is an awesome dummy half. That was a home game against the Rabbitohs, but they are 8-0 in away games this year. New South Wales Cup Warriors are really good. This is their 3rd season in a row as a top 4 team, and it's their best season of the 2 Andes era. And I had to make a tweak to my under-21 category because, well, I made it under-22s. Because this week against the Rabbitohs, there was Caleb Lehman got a decent opportunity, and Toby Crosby is 22 years old. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 under-21 players in the team that smoked the Rabbitohs, smoked a rabbit. But that goes up to 8 players who are under-22s. Interestingly, Luke Hansen hasn't played recently either. So if you go Te Maire Martin, Tana Boyd, Luke Hansen, those are the 3 best halves for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup, based on selection with a bit of my juice sprinkled on top, or poured on top, let's say. Because Luke Hansen, when Te Maire Martin went to NRL, Luke Hansen was the guy with Tana Boyd. Luke Hansen has played far more New South Wales Cup than Jet Cleary. But now Luke Hansen's battling injury, so Jet Cleary is the main half, but they've also promoted Caleb Lehman. Caleb Lehman, Maris Jr. from Auckland, had a cup of tea with the Bulldogs for a year, maybe 2. He's come back to Auckland, and he's been playing like a bench utility role, just being there as cover. He got a decent run against the Rabbitohs. And the thing I find interesting is how the Jersey Flegg team, the under-21s, they had a bye this week, but the Warriors didn't call up Jack Thompson or Maui Winitana Patalaseo. They let them have a rest. And they instead stuck with Jet Cleary and Caleb Lehman in the halves. There might have been moments where, Taine Tuaupiki was the dominant playmaker, because that's what he does in New South Wales Cup. That's how good he is as a rugby league player. Geronimo Doyle's very good in that role as well. But with the under-21s having a bye, the Warriors didn't put one of their under-19 halves who are playing under-21s into New South Wales Cup. That is in keeping with how the Warriors develop talent. They don't rush them up the grades. They just let them slowly brew in the spot they want them. And it shows how much depth the Warriors do have. Because Tana Boyd, Tamaita Martin, and Luke Hanson weren't playing New South Wales Cup. They had Jet Cleary, Caleb Lehman, Leah Towers had a bit of mahi in the halves recently. You've got Doyle, you've got Tain Tuaupiki, so there's a lot of playmaking options. But also you've got 2 under-19 halves who are playing under-21s most weeks as well. I would like to update a few New Zealand Kiwis things. We've got the injury to Jerome Hughes. So if we're thinking about New Zealand Kiwis halves combinations, we've also got Dylan Brown not playing NRL. So that's a bit weird, but it would be awesome if Dylan Brown wasn't playing NRL, gets selected for the Kiwis, and he's really good for the Kiwis. That would be a cool situation. Not quite as cool as Kieran Foran playing for the Kiwis in his last year of rugby league. That would be extra super duper deluxe cool. Other halves contenders for the Kiwis, we've got Tamaita Martin, Cody Nikarima, and maybe a bit of Phoenix Crossland if he wants to. Trent Toilau was in the squad last year. I don't think they'll need to go that far into the depth. Trent Toilau's from Melbourne. He played his way in through like Panthers, New South Wales Cup, and a bit of NRL. He hasn't been in the NRL mix for the Panthers consistently, but he's there as cover. We've talked about Chanel Harris-Tavita. I expect him to stick with Samoa. That's his best opportunity. So when I'm thinking about the Kiwis, I try to think about the top tier and just keep it concentrated on the top tier, because there's so many eligibility questions and so much unknown shit below the top tier that it gets a bit wonky trying to predict those matters. So my top tier for Kiwis depth in the halves: Jerome Hughes, Dylan Brown, Kieran Foran, Cody Nikarima, Tamaita Martin. I think having 5 is enough. You know, I think we're in a good spot if we got 5 decent halves for Aotearoa, all of whom have played international rugby league. So again, we're talking about international rugby, sporting experience. All of those players have played for the Kiwis before. Sticking with the halves bracket, the growth of New Zealand Rugby League is evident in the quality of halves we've got coming through. I mentioned Caleb Lehman and Maui Winitana Patalaseo. They are the New Zealand halves coming through the Warriors system. And funnily enough, the best halves from Aotearoa are split across or shared across 3 NRL systems. The Knights have Hami Loza and Ryder Williams. The Bulldogs have Cassius Tia, who's actually playing a bit of centre in New South Wales Cup, and Bronson Rubin. Williams and Tia, I believe, are eligible for Samoa. And then Bronson Rubin, I think he's just NZ Kiwis coming out of Christchurch, and I think Hami Loza is just NZ Kiwis as well. I think Lehman and Winitana Patalaseo are also Samoan eligible, but I'm not confirmed with that. So, like Tia and Williams, they might want to represent Aotearoa, that's cool. But even accounting for them playing for Samoa, Hami Loza and Bronson Rubin are really, really good halves coming through in the junior ranks. T is probably the highest level right now because he's playing a lot of New South Wales Cup. And then Hami Loza's played New South Wales Cup for the Knights this year as well. And that makes him ahead of Ryder Williams. Ryder Williams, who had a development contract with the Titans last year, I believe, and then switched to the Knights for this season, earlier in the season. but he's just stuck with the under-21s level. I did roll through my New Zealand Kiwis top tier in a recent newsletter last Thursday. And I think this is a pretty tight top tier. So the fullbacks, Nickel Clockstar, Keanu Kinney. The wingers, Jermaine Isako, Ronaldo Mulitalo, Will Warbrick. Warbrick's out injured at the moment. And there was, obviously, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's playing for Samoa. There was kind of some noise about Watene Zelezniak playing for Tonga. I think that was in 2023. So that's cool. Not too worried about Watene Zelezniak at this stage. The centres. I think there are 3 clear elite Kiwi centres. Matthew Tomoko, Sebastian Chris, Casey McLean. Casey McLean and Sebastian Chris could cover wing as well. Casey McLean is one of my biggest risers for the Kiwis. He's found a groove with the Panthers, and that groove has coincided with the Panthers winning a lot of games. Halves, we talked about them. Hookers, we've got Jeremy Marshall-King, Phoenix Crossland, and Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith's out injured, and I think you can have a good combo there with Marshall-King, Phoenix Crossland. Phoenix Crossland playing as a small forward for the Knights right now, so he can also play that position. This is where things get funky because my other best improver for the Kiwis mixer is Xavier Willison. But I'm not selecting Xavier Willison ahead of Fisher Harris, Tapane Leota, Asofa Solomona, Nofahu White, Leo Thompson, Griffin Neem, or Aaron Clark. Because, let's go the second tier lads there. Leo Thompson's awesome for the Knights. Nofahu White is awesome for the Roosters. Aaron Clark is awesome for the Warriors. Griffin Neem, he's doing well for the Cowboys, and he's an established New Zealand Kiwis player. My favourite player there, can't go past Fisher Harris and Tapane, but Nofahu White is just crazy for the Roosters. And he is a high quality middle forward. Edge forwards, Isaiah Papali'i, Britton Nakora, Marata Niokore, Scott Sorensen, Jordan Ricky. That's my top tier. I am very curious about Dimitri Vaimonga. He could play for Niue. Could play for Samoa. Could play for Tonga. I think Jacob Laban is an option as a development squad for the Kiwis, so that's something to watch out for. Other notable players from Aotearoa who I think are going to play for Samoa. Keep playing for Samoa. Nothing crazy here. We've talked about it all season. Simi Sasangi with the Raiders. Ata Mariota for the Raiders. Sasangi Ellerslie Jr., Mariota Manurewa Jr., Benaya Iowelu, a hooker coming out of Tangaroa College, and I am hoping that we do get to see Benaya Iowelu, Connolly Lemuelu playing for Samoa, 2 players who came through Tangaroa College. This is unconfirmed, but I think Iowelu and Lemuelu both played first 5 and first 15 rugby for Tangaroa College. Tonga, we've talked about it again. Salisi Faketi, Temple Kalepon, Tavita Nofahu, and of course Leka Halasima. Said it before, say it again. Everyone should be expecting Leka Halasima to play for Tonga. No one should be surprised or shocked when he does not play for the Kiwis. You've probably been living under a rock if you think that's the case. I think that's it for the Rugby League. I think that is it for the rugby league, and that means we've got to talk about a cricket game. Cricket games. And if we're talking cricket, we're talking Blackcaps T20 cricket. And if we're talking Blackcaps being pretty damn good in T20 cricket because they won the T20 Tri-Series, they're winning a lot of T20 games this year. There's only one thing for me to say, and that is that the Super Smash is perfect. I'm not crazy enough to say that the Super Smash is the best T20 competition in the world. Even though I think that. But I will say the Super Smash is perfect. Is the perfect T20 competition for New Zealand. And I do have a sneaking suspicion that New Zealand cricket might get a bit weird with the Super Smash and just try and do some goofy shit. Don't do anything. Super Smash is perfect. It develops T20 cricketers and all cricketers for New Zealand. Let's look at the results. The White Ferns are T20 World Cup champions. The Blackcaps are winning lots of T20 games since the T20 World Cup. 21 players used this year. 17 players used in the Tri-Series. New Zealand is a good T20 cricketing nation. Again, per capita, kg for kg, New Zealand is the best T20 cricketing nation in the world. And I think the Super Smash is a significant reason for that because all of our players play the Super Smash. And it just gets the job done as far as providing summer entertainment and development opportunities for our Kiwi cricketers. But that's just a side tangent. And that was on my mind coming out of that T20 Tri-Series, a T20 Tri-Series in which Tim Seifert was awesome, Rachin Ravindra was awesome, Devon Conway was pretty good, shout out to him, Matt Henry was awesome, Jacob Duffy was awesome, Ish Shodhi took his opportunities, and it was just a really good T20 Tri-Series for New Zealand in a year where they just keep winning T20s.
Yeah, shout out to the Super Smash. I mean, the amount of players that they rolled through in that series, and then the amount of different guys who had influential performances within that, and even down to the way that they won that final, which was by far their most competitive, the most competitive game that they played through that series, where frankly it looked like when Zach Folks and Jacob Duffy got taken just a little bit in the last, the third and second to last overs, I was thinking this one might get away from us, which would have been a bummer if you've won all your games in the series up until then and then you just lose in the last over of the final. But no, that's what Matt Henry's for. And not just Matt Henry, because two superb catches as well. Not 100% convinced that Bracewell didn't step on the rope for his one, but it was a great catch nonetheless, and it was given out, so therefore it is a great catch. And Mitchell's I thought was magic, like diving on the boundary at long off, I think it might have been, coming around and just getting the big fingers up underneath that one. Great fielding, great sort of tactical approach to that, and that's another thing I think we can say about the Super Smash developing good international players is it's not always just about the opportunities that that a variety of players get, including young guys getting opportunities in that format. It's also like that's a really highly competitive tournament where you got 6 good teams, anyone can beat anyone on any given day, and therefore those players are being put in a lot of sort of match winning situations. Like they know how to handle bowling in the last over, or you know what the expectation is on you as a fielder in those situations because they've been there, they've gotten the reps. even before they get to international cricket. And then once you're playing international cricket, you're probably playing around the world as well, and you're getting even more repetitions. But just like it was such a good, that last over from Matt Henry there was such a good encapsulation of how the Blackcaps play winning cricket. And they, it's not the biggest trophy they're going to play for over the next few months in T20 internationals, but they got a little bit of a trophy on the back of it. They won that tournament. They went there, played Zimbabwe, South Africa, won every single game, and yeah. Now we move on to a test series, I guess.
I would add, but all these Blackcaps are playing T20 leagues around the world. But where does that start? Right? Like
Exactly.
Bevan Jacobs got an IPL contract from being a Super Smash player.
Yep. Had never played for the Blackcaps at that point.
Rachin Ravindra, Devon Conway, Finn Allen, all these dudes, Zach Folks, Will O'Rourke, Mitch Hay, Tim Robinson. All these dudes have been really good in the Super Smash before going to a higher level or a sideways level, because I'm not convinced that any T20 league in the world is better than the Super Smash. Prior to this tour of Africa, I was very interested in Rachin Ravindra because he had, as we talked about, he hadn't like stamped his mark on the Blackcaps T20 team. Now he has in T20 cricket. And as I wrote in the paid section of our newsletter yesterday, Rachin Ravindra is second for T20 international runs for New Zealand this year. He's averaging 40, strike rate of 164. Him and Tim Seifert are the only batters with 200 plus runs. Rachin Ravindra is one of 4 batters who have scored over 10 runs with a strike rate over 160 this year. Not bad for Rachin. He's playing his way into the T20 first 11. But old mate Rachin, he is also the only New Zealand batter ever who has like played 10 or more games. Well, let's go 100 runs. Shout out Peter McGlashan, 63 runs, average of 63, strike rate of 124. Shout out to Ben Wheeler. He's got 58 runs, no average, strike rate of 123.
Infinite average.
The old infinite average.
What a player.
If we go 70 plus runs, 100 plus runs, 10 plus games, those dudes are out of the mix. Rachin Ravindra is the only, well, he's not the only, because the one and only, Mitch Hay is also here, but he's only got 166 runs. So let's go 200 plus runs. Averaging over 40 with a strike rate over 100 in ODI cricket. Right, so Mitch Hay is the only other dude in this conversation, and he's only got 166 runs and a lower strike rate than Ravindra. Ravindra has 1,233 runs and an average of 44 and a strike rate of 109. And Rachin Ravindra was also the leading run scorer at the Champions Trophy. Right, so Rachin Ravindra, he is second for T20 international runs this year for New Zealand. He was the leading run scorer at the Champions Trophy with a strike rate of 106. And he was also the second leading run scorer in the last World Test Championship cycle for New Zealand. Him and Kane Williamson are the only batters with 900 or more runs for New Zealand. This is like a two-pronged thinga. Rachin Ravindra, his T20 Tri-Series performances have put him into the top tier of New Zealand T20 batters this year, which was a key development for him because his career T20 record, let's just say it will improve. And now we come into a test series where I believe Rachin Ravindra is the best batter for New Zealand. But ultimately, we look at these pockets, second only behind Kane Williamson. So take out Kane Williamson, Rachin Ravindra was the best batter in the World Test Championship cycle, last World Test Championship cycle. He was the best batter, leading run scorer, only batter at the Champions Trophy with over 250 runs in the ODI format, and he's got that averaging 40 strike rate over 100 thingy-majig. And he's also one of our best batters in T20 international cricket. So now we've got this, what do we got here? The old runs per test innings statistic. Rachin Ravindra, he's averaging 35.2 runs per test innings. But he's behind Devon Conway on 36, Tom Latham 36.9, Daryl Mitchell 39.5, Williamson 49.8. So he's in the middle there. But ultimately what I'm talking around is Rachin Ravindra's awesome. He was awesome in the Tri-Series, which was a major development for him as a T20 batter. And now he is in the test team, I assume, to play against Zimbabwe, where I believe he is the best batter for New Zealand. And he has that opportunity with Kane Williamson out to do his thing. But this is, I think this is just a checkpoint for me in the career of Rachin Ravindra, where all three formats, this dude has become one of New Zealand's, I think right now he's the second best all-format batter for New Zealand behind Kane Williamson. And because maybe Kane Williamson might not be in the T20 first 11, maybe Rachin Ravindra is the best all-format batter for New Zealand. Maybe we need to talk about Daryl Mitchell. Maybe it's him. I don't know. But Rachin Ravindra right now is an absolute run-scoring monster. And 2025 may be the year for Rachin Ravindra not to have his breakout, because, I mean, that was the 2023 World Cup, wasn't it? So he's already done that. So we go last two ODI tournaments. He was a phenom at the World Cup, leading run scorer at the Champions Trophy. Holy guacamole, Rachin Ravindra is pretty good at cricket.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you put it like that way, he kind of had the 2023 was his year for ODI cricket, 2024 was his year for Test cricket, and maybe 2025 is his year for T20 cricket. Like, he's just sort of established himself in one after the other, and it's a steady stride. Yeah, and he was awesome in that final against South Africa too, and with his innings there. And might get to bat 3 in the Test series as well. The absence of Kane Williamson, that's a possibility, as he might get to try that. I kind of still see him as more of a number 5 batter at this point, because he's such a sort of dashing stroke maker. But
4.
This is different. Yeah, 4 might be the right compromise without him. But it depends on what you do with the.
That's where he usually bats, and I think. What I think will happen, especially now that Glenn Phillips is out, but I think they're going to, the way they talked about it, it was a Michael Bracewell as a like-for-like replacement for Glenn Phillips, which makes me wonder that Michael Bracewell is going to play in the first test starting Wednesday night. And I also believe Devon Conway is going to open. So I think it's going to be Tom Latham, Devon Conway, Will Young, Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell, Tom Blundell, Henry Nichols, jokes, Michael Bracewell.
Yeah, and then Jacob Duffy's going to play, isn't he? Like he kind
Oh,
of it's a nice opportunity to give him a debut, but also like he's kind of demanding it.
I don't know if he'll play the first test. I think.
Who would they?
Well, I think they can have. So if we got Blundell number 6, then we need 5 more
Yeah,
players. Matt Henry's going to be there. Santner's going to be there. Will O'Rourke's probably going to be there.
Matt
Uh,
Henry
well, I said Henry. So
and Jacob
Henry.
Duffy.
Wait, let me work through
Yeah,
it.
there's your bowling lineup.
No, Henry, Santner, Bracewell, O'Rourke, and then it's a Nathan Smith, Ajaz Patel. So I've got Jacob.
That's where, yeah.
I've got Jacob Duffy behind Patel Smith. But this is one of my things. I think it's a very important test series for Nathan Smith to solidify that spot. He is ahead of Jacob Duffy in the test pecking order because he's already played test cricket. And I think his all-round ability, so you got Santner as a lefty spinner, Bracewell as a righty spinner. I don't think you need to select Ajaz Patel as another lefty spinner. Smith's an all-rounder, so he's got those skills. So then it's like, okay, Jacob Duffy versus Matt Henry, Will O'Rourke, and a spinner. I think Jacob Duffy is still out of that first 11, but he is someone I can see playing the second test. Like, he is the most likely out of the Jacob Duffy, Matt Fisher, Henry Nicholls group to play a test.
Yeah, thinking through it like that, my preference would be what I said is the Duffy, O'Rourke, Henry, three-pronged pace attack, bit of Santner. And then it might be conditions dependent, but like you could because you could have Santner just bat at 7 and not pick Michael Bracewell, or you could pick Nathan Smith to bat at 7 and Santner stays a day. So it might be a Bracewell or Smith. Do you want an extra spinner or do you want an extra seamer? That's what I mean, like conditions dependent. I wasn't thinking Ajaz for the first 11 with Santner back in there, but also that's harsh on Ajaz because he is still kind of the guy when it comes to spin bowling, especially in, well, only in overseas conditions, but these are overseas conditions. So yeah, I don't know. There is a decision or two to be made there, I suppose.
Do you know what's weird? I was looking at the best bowlers for tests in Zimbabwe, especially recently. Funnily enough, looking through that, England, Australia and India haven't toured Zimbabwe. So shout out to them for really helping out test cricket around the world because they don't go to Zimbabwe. New Zealand, West Indies and Sri Lanka, I think, are the only nations who have or will tour Zimbabwe twice since 2015.
Not even South Africa.
Correct, which is strange.
Damn.
But the best Zimbabwe bowlers are seamers, and then Secunda Raza's up there as a spinner, and the best touring bowlers are spinners. So who knows what will happen?
Well, I think maybe runs will happen because that's what happened when South Africa went there. We got a brother scoring 350 plus individually, so I think maybe that's Rachin Ravindra 400, I suppose, might be on the cards.
What's your preferred bowling lineup? So Blundell's batting 6, and then you need 5 players. Who are your 5 players?
My preferred, I think, would be Santner, Henry. I'll chuck Ajaz Patel in there as well because I think you need, if it's going to be flat, you need the workhorse as well. So 2 spinners for that reason. I'd take Santner and Ajaz Patel, and then the 3 seamers I mentioned: O'Rourke, Henry, Duffy. So that would mean no Smith and no Bracewell.
I still want Nathan Smith in there. but I want Jacob Duffy to make his debut, but I did have noted down that I was very interested in how Nathan Smith performed on this tour. And I'm also curious about Will Young. In my Blackcaps first 11, I have Will Young opening the batting ahead of Devon Conway. Then we go Kane Williamson, Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell. In this team, I've got Conway opening and Will Young batting number 3. I should have pulled this one up before. I'll say this while we're talking through it. Will Young, last year was his best year of Test batting. And he was one of the 3 batters last year who averaged over 40, which must have also been Ravindra and Williamson. So 2020, he only played 2 games, averaged 24. 2021, he played 3 games, averaged 34. 2022, he played 7 games, averaged 26.5. 2023, he only played the 1 game. Last year, he played 7 games and he averaged 40. So the 2 years where he's played 7 games, he averaged 26.5, then 40. Part of that includes Will Young. Now we're getting into juicy territory, because reflecting on this period, it was kind of grim with Tim Southee as captain. You know, he had a grimness that flowed throughout the Blackcaps, most notably when he was captain. Will Young averaged 20.7 under Tim Southee as captain, but he also averaged 18 under Kane Williamson as captain. He averages 39.6 under Tom Latham captaincy. So last year was his best year of Test batting. He does his best work under Tom Latham as the skipper. What's his best position? Well, he averaged 96 because he got 96 in his 1 Test batting number 5. But he averages 47 batting number 3 compared to 25 batting as an opener. Now I'm seeing that I've just come across this after I listed off my first 11 for this Test series. I've got Will Young batting number 3 with Tom Latham as captain. Those are the 2 best zones for Will Young in his career so far. Batting number 3 and batting under Tom Latham's captaincy. I don't think Henry Nicholls should play. He might play. I don't think he should play in this Test series. He's okay as batting cover. I think Devon Conway will play. And I am hoping that Will Young gets a chance at number 3. When Glenn Phillips was available, right, I was talking about moving everyone up a spot in the batting order. So you have Will Young open, Rachin Ravindra number 3, Daryl Mitchell number 4. I think you can still go Glenn Phillips number 5, Tom Blundell, and then take your pick. Bracewell, Smith, Santner, fill it up with the bowlers, because a lot of those bowlers are pretty good batters. I think since then Phillips is out injured and I've chilled out a bit. So now it's all good to have Conway open and Will Young bat number 3. I think this is a big series for Will Young. We're not going to hang our hat on the runs scored in the series. Rachin Ravindra scored a century. He's the greatest batter ever. Tom Latham scored a century. He's back in form. Devon Conway scored a century. He needs to be in the first 11 for every Test moving forward. I'm not going to do that. But I do think Will Young is in an interesting position as someone who has struggled for a consistent first 11 role. He should get that opportunity in this Test series. And I think he's just a really good batter. He's always been a really good batter. He just hasn't had those opportunities. And, like, what does he do in ODI cricket? He's now played 46 ODIs, averaging 41. He's got a first-class batting average of 40. His 31 average in tests sharpens to averaging 40 in his busiest year of test cricket. So I think it's just an interesting series. Not an important series for Will Young, but I think it's a very interesting series.
Yeah, I think this is just to get in there and score some runs. It's like you're saying, we're not going to overreact to the runs that are scored, but you got to score the runs still. Like you don't want to be going into a series like this where you're, if you're out of form and you stay out of form afterwards, it's maybe that might be a bit more of something to read into. But like Will Young doesn't have a test century famously. Will go and get the test century in one of the more favorable things against, like, it's respectfully, but a Zimbabwe team that is doesn't get to play a lot of test cricket, and what we expect to be fairly good batting conditions, at least based on what we saw in the last test series that was hosted in this country a couple of weeks ago. Like, just get the monkey off your back, just go out there, score, get some big scores, boost your average a little bit. It's like, yes, it might be seen as a little bit of what's like a little bit of flat track bully type stuff, but I mean, you can go bully other countries in the non-flat tracks later on. Just you can make your runs when the opportunity is there around. So it's not important necessarily for any of these guys, but valuable in its own way. Like these stats find their way into the things that we're talking about, like who scored the most runs this year, who's averaged this since 2023 or whatever. Like these stats find their way into that and boost up your numbers. So do what you can, make hay when the sun shines, if indeed that's the type of series we get, because who knows, like maybe we'll get different types of pitches reacted to the last ones, and the ball's just going to be like spinning around corners and stuff, and it becomes a very different kind of threat. I mean, we don't know that till the games get underway, but if indeed it is that kind of high scoring type series, cash in while you can. It's a important thing to be able to do in Test cricket.
Let's finish with a little bit of football. You've been talking a lot about Michael Boxall, and he seems to have like a similar effect as Steven Adams as a Kiwi on the, like, competing in an international league. Just watching some of the stuff about Michael Boxall, like, I think aura is a bit overstated in the modern linguistics, because in New Zealand we just have mana. Like, it's the same thing. It's far cooler to say mana than some trendy word. Michael Boxall, like, he's got the leadership mana, but I've just tapped into, like, he's also got this, like, another modern word, he's got the swag, he's got this, like, old man type of football swag. So I just wanted to put that on wax on the record, because, like, he's not just playing good football. Michael Boxall is just one of the coolest players in the MLS, the same way Steven Adams is one of the coolest players in the NBA. And also, I just want to update the Surman clearances, because there's Pedro Rondon. He, like, I think he just tweets out how many clearances Surman has.
He does, yeah.
And the
every
latest
week
update is 4 hours ago. Portland Timbers defender Surman is the player with the most clearances, 162 in the MLS this season. And we continue to talk about All White's, like, World Cup squad stuff. Like, and again, I don't want to repeat it, so we don't need to go too deep into it, but you can't go wrong with Surman, Tyler Bindon, but then Michael Boxall is also, he's just that guy, he's a leader, he's cool, He's calm, he's composed, he's got the long throw in. So I just wanted to shout out those dudes. I think it's like a weekly occurrence at this stage of the year because a lot of the other football leagues have slowed down. Shout out to Finn Surman, shout out to Michael Boxall. Probably repeat that next week.
Yeah, just had a quick look, and that Rondon fella's tweeted about Finn Surman on 12 different occasions. So, and Portland Timbers defender Finn Surman is the player with the most clearances, blah, blah, blah. Portland Timbers defender Finn Surman is the player with the most clearances, blah, blah, blah. Then he actually wasn't for a little while because he did miss a game for all whites duty, I think, and then a couple others caught up and went ahead. But then started the season, it was the same thing. Portland Timbers defender Finn Surman. So good consistency from that fella, telling the people what they need to know. That is a stat I've been tracking closely, not only because Finn Surman is at the top of that leaderboard right now, which is sometimes his numbers are slightly different than what I found on other websites. So I think the concept or the definition of defensive clearance, maybe not every stat agency sees it as exactly the same. But the other reason I've looked at that closely is because our guy Michael Boxall is also very high on that list. Like he's in the top 5 too himself. So yeah, good stuff there. Maybe Bill Tuiloma's left his run a little bit late, but he is actually starting to get some games now. He did really well when he came in at that one game at centre back when there were a couple CBs down, and it was finally his opportunity after gross negligence at Charlotte, them just ignoring him for a while, but more than a while. But he did well enough that they've like sort of massaged a little role for him as a right back in the most recent game. So he started about 4 games in a row there now, which is amazing. It's the most football he's played in a row for about 2 years. And it's not a full-on bursting forward type right back role. It's a little bit of a hybrid. Like they ask him to defend like a centre back sometimes, tuck in a little bit more. But that's, I don't know, that's kind of cool. They've like, after all the negligence, they've actually now seemingly they're sort of manufactured a role for Bill Tuiloma in their team, and they've been on a good run of form too. They were doing terribly up until that point. They'd lost to like something like 8 of 9 games or something before Tuiloma got that played that first game back where he scored a goal. And they've been grinding out some good results since then. So he's actually helped turn their season around a little bit. But Minnesota especially, and a little bit Portland too. I think Portland are about 5th in the Western Conference, and Minnesota are top 3, but 2 points off top. So Minnesota's been doing amazingly. And yeah, Boxall's been heavily among that. And this has been a really nice celebration season for Boxall, because he's had the All-Star selection most of all, so that puts him in a bit of a spotlight. You get a few more articles being written about him, a bit more stuff like that. And then there's also the long throw phenomena that's been around. This morning, prepping for Flying Kiwis, I was watching a video that Minnesota's put up on their channels, like the team put up on their channels, of him answering questions that were like sent in by the fans, but it was his daughter who was asking him the questions, so they gave her a little list of them, and there's like, I don't know, 6 or 7-year-old daughter or something like that, which is a very cute video there, and he gives good answers and stuff like that as well. But it's also just fun because you're watching him just hang out with his kid, and he's one who's very like he said during that, like, what's your favorite tradition of the games? And he's like, well, there's like whenever they win, in the home games at Minnesota United, the stadium and everyone like blasts out of the speakers and everyone sings along to Oasis's Wonderwall. And he said, so that's very cool. But also then his actual favorite bit is when his kids come out in the field with him afterwards. So there's always photos of him like that, where it's like, get his son to go, his younger son to go run and kick a ball into the net kind of thing. All those little elements. His family presented him with his All-Star jersey as well at a Minnesota United training, so that was very cool. He's had a lot, and not to mention the fact he scored the goal that set New Zealand up to qualify for the World Cup as well. So he's had a lot of great little and big celebratory moments lately. It's been one of the best, if not even possibly the best season of his entire career, and it's cool when you get that later in someone's career too, because you get this kind of like career retrospective stuff. You get to see how, throwback to Sigmund Freud earlier, you get to see how like the stuff he's been through all in his career up to this point has led him to this moment kind of thing. And playing his best footy as a 36-year-old, I think that stuff is awesome. So it's I've absolutely loved tracking the Michael Boxall stuff lately. It's been fantastic. But yes, Finn Surman, Bill Tuiloma as well now. Even we've got some good defenders in MLS this season who all seem to be playing very well. In Tuiloma's case, when given the opportunity, but in Surman and Boxall's case, just regardless, they're always their first 11 players, and they've been excellent start to, we're not quite at the finish, but start to wherever we are up to at this point.
Any wahine in the American scene that you want to update?
No, because there aren't any. But
Beauty.
well, we have two contracted, but Millie Clegg's out on loan in Canada, where she's battling away for Halifax Tides. Hasn't scored a goal yet in about 10 or 11 games, which is, I think, getting a little bit frustrating for her. But she's playing for a team at the bottom of the table, so no one's scoring goals for them, and she's getting good minutes, like playing regularly, which she hasn't had really in her career yet at a professional level outside of that one season with the Wellington Phoenix. So she is at least getting good, like she's out there playing, and that's important. That's part of it. And the goals will flow. She's playing pretty well from what I've seen, and I've watched a fair bit of it. There was an interesting one a couple of weeks ago where she ran into the post, just trying to win a header against the goalkeeper. So, putting your smashing your body, doing what you got to do. But yeah, head collided with the post, and she had blood, like a cut above her eye, bleeding down. So I thought that was going to be it for her game, but absolute trooper, went off sideline, saved it up, went back out there with like the blood-stained bandages over her head, and finished the game from that point onwards. So that's what Millie Clegg's been up to. There are the other New Zealander contracted in America as Ellie Riley, who's been long-term injured. She's been, missed the Olympics last year, hasn't been back since, barely played before that anyway. She was trying to battle through the pain to play at the Olympics, didn't make it. She is back in training now with Angel City, though, so there is a possibility. She's not been elevated off the injured list yet, but there is a possibility that maybe she might return before the end of the year. Like there's not really been any updates or anything like that, but she has done some training. Not sure if that's like full contact stuff yet, but certainly she's out in the grass running around and joining in with the team where she can. So that's a positive too. We might yet get to see Ellie Riley on a footy pitch again.
I do remember I was sick sometime last year, and I was watching the Angel City like documentary series or something.
Ooh.
And there was like this revolutionary club, and I just look in their results. They finished 8th, 5th, and 12th. So
yeah, they actually haven't.
I don't know what revolutions they're doing, but shout out to them. Shout out to Ellie Riley. Righto, we need to hit some Wellington Phoenix key points before we depart the podcast arena. Starting with another centre back, Isaac Hughes, who you said was one of the best players for the Phoenix in their win over the Perth Glory in the Aussie Cup. Fantastic news for a player who had some tough moments last season, but as you've talked about, these youngsters are going to get better, and there's that production line on show, like Finn Surman departs. Scott Wotton, has he departed?
Yeah, he played against them for Perth in this game.
Big dog. But they've got Isaac Hughes. Who else was there? Centre back Sheridan?
Yeah, and Sheridan, Jaden Smith was the other one. So they had a back three.
I mean, they got a production line of defenders at the Wellington Phoenix, so shout out to that. What did you make of those three centre backs, and especially Isaac Hughes leading the way, because he would have been the senior defender in that group?
He was, and I kind of don't even really view him as a youngster anymore. I think he's had a full season as a first 11 player, and he played bits and pieces in the year before that. So this is really his third season as a regular squad member. But beyond these, like 30, I think I counted 35 games, I think it is, of A-League football at this stage. So I think he's just an established first team player at this point. He's not trying to break in or anything like that. And he did have some tough moments last season, but I thought they were only tough moments. I think one of the things which you really can't underestimate this in a player who certainly last year, he was still someone who was a youngster stepping up his first year as a first 11 player at the A-League, and probably someone who people didn't necessarily expect would be a first 11 player as quickly as that. Um, the kind of like the mentality he showed to like battle through those tough spots where, you know, there was that run where it was like every second week he made a mistake that led to a goal or something like that. But those moments were the only, like, he didn't drop his head after that. You wouldn't see him like shanking passes left, right, and center, knowing where you can tell sometimes that a player is dwelling on the mistake that they've just made. You wouldn't get that with Isaac Hughes, and you certainly didn't get that from game to game to game. And I thought he was outstanding at the start of that season. He had that sort of like slippery little patch for about a month or so. And then I thought he was really good after that as well. And in a less noticeable way because the team wasn't doing as well. But I mean, there's no doubt at all that he's coming in as their senior centre back for the next season. They will sign someone else, but that someone else is going to be someone from outside the squad. You know, it's the player who's going to be more pedigreed than Hughes, but Hughes is the guy who's there. Who's like, I'm imparting the sort of this is how we do things here. This is how this team wants to play. This is what the coach is asking us to do. I'm the senior centre back here now because I'm the one who's been here for a couple of years working with Chiefy like that. And he certainly has those kind of leadership credentials because he's a former captain of the reserves team as well. So I think he is someone who also will come in with a big season. We've seen what he's capable of. So it's not about can he do that. It's more like can he do that every week? Is the consistency is always that next step for players like that. And yeah, I expect him to be a very important player for the Wellington Phoenix this season. But you just look at that defense that was around him in that one, where you got like Lucas Kelly-Hield on one side, Schwan Loke on the other side. The other centre backs were Sheridan, and Sheridan's sort of in the same class as Hughes. I think he pretty much had a full season last year. So I think he's a level above. He's not new to this thing anymore. And Lucas Kelly-Hield neither. He's had a couple of seasons, although he's a lot of injuries last year, so he didn't play a whole lot. But Schwan Loke and Jaden Smith certainly are new to this. This would be their first kind of. They both got scholarship contracts last season, but neither of them have started an A-League game before. Pretty interesting to see them playing with three at the back there, though, especially when you know that they're short on centre backs because Wooden's left, and they haven't signed the replacement yet. So I wonder if that's not just like that could just be a make do with what you got, or it could be a recognition that this is actually a really strong area in the wider squad. Because I'm looking at who was it on the bench was Mac Monroe. So he played in the second half against Wrexham alongside Dylan Gardner. Dylan Gardner's been there in the academy a couple of years, and he's played at an under-17 World Cup for New Zealand and is a very good defender. And could make the case that when Jaden Smith got the scholarship contract last year, he kind of leapfrogged Dylan Gardner to get there. Dylan Gardner hasn't played for the first team, but he was in the Aussie Cup last year in the same role that Mac Monroe just did, a new substitute on the bench, like the centre-back cover. So you could argue Mac Monroe is also now just leapfrogged Dylan Gardner. And yet at the same time, Dylan Gardner was just back Saturday afternoon at Petone Memorial Ground, I think it was, on the turf there, playing for the Phoenix Reserves, captaining the Phoenix Reserves against Petone. They actually lost 2-1, but of course, half that reserve team was away with the first team for the Aussie Cup game. They were in Perth, so they had to call up a bunch of guys. Like, it was half the team that we saw against Wrexham in the second half, and half the under-18s who had also lost 2-1 to Petone the week before, interestingly. So I don't think that's a reflection of Dylan Gardner being a bad player. I think that Phoenix just have a lot of good centre-backs. And Mac Monroe is another example of someone like that. Jaden Smith is another example. Gardner as well. Matt Sheridan being able to play, certainly when they play in a back three. Matt Sheridan is a very good central defensive option. Maybe not so much if you're only going with two centre backs. And then Isaac Hughes in the middle of that, you're going to sign another centre back. That's on record. They've said they want another centre back and they want an attacking midfielder. Only have one import spot, so I'm not sure which one they will choose the import for, and might depend on what kind of local talent they're able to find. Likely, probably an Australian guy in the mold of Carlo Armiento, I think his name is, the left wing that they signed, left wing, but also if you're going to be playing with wing backs, I'd imagine he is seen as someone who will play there rather than up in the front three. He'd be someone who'd play in that sort of wide defensive role, but because of his attacking capabilities, that wouldn't be a defensive role. So you'd be getting someone who can play in that wing back spot, who's going to bring a lot of like crossing and dribbling and just general attacking impetus to that role, which I think they need quite a bit. Because if your alternative is not LB, Lucas Kelly-Hield, who did score a goal on the weekend, that was great, getting the wing back getting all the way up in there, but he's not a burst forward type of player at all. So you'd well, you want to have both, I guess. You want to have someone who's a little more defensively sound, someone who will tuck in and link up, and you also want someone who's just going to burst through and create stuff like that. And it's notable if they have a lot of really good, strong central defenders coming through the academy. We've also seen across this Wrexham game and this Perth game that there's no shortage of speedy, skillful forwards as well, who are very good in counter-attacking situations. So Luke Brooks-Smith looked like he's ready to go to his next evolution already, based on what we saw in the 60-odd minutes against Perth. He was borderline the best player on the pitch, and if he wasn't, at least you could certainly make a case that it was when he got substituted off after about an hour that the Phoenix started to lose control in that game, and Perth came back into it and eventually equalised. So that's great. But Gabe Sloan Rodriguez also started that game. Nathan Walker's out injured, but he fits into that category too. Luke Supik had a nice, promising spot off the bench playing up front, but he's also someone who he runs like a winger. He's not a winger, but he runs like a winger. He's a dribbler who likes to get in behind, running on and running with and without the ball. So that's clearly another area where they just, whether it's something they've looked for with their recruitment or whether it's just something that's coincidentally happened, or maybe it's something they're trying deliberately to develop with whatever players they happen to have. There's a couple trends there in terms of Wellington Phoenix youngsters. Like, they got big, solid centre backs. They also have pretty classy midfielders just in general. That's always the case. And when you have academy systems, that tends to be true, because that's the one thing that's the easiest to work on, is just everyone's working on their touch. Everyone's working on, how do you turn out of pressure? How do you pass the ball, keep possession? Where do you move, be an option, those kind of things. And they have, speedy counter-attacking wingers. So there's a few nice little trends there, and a lot will probably depend on how much these guys do level up between last season and this season as to how well the Phoenix do. But Luke Brooks-Smith looks like he's already there. And Luke Supik looks like there might be some potential there. Certainly all of those defensive players look like they're ready for bigger roles than what they had. So, and just the confidence as well of, I know they didn't beat Perth, but they did progress past them because of the penalty shootout. And I think having a lot of those young guys taking penalties and scoring penalties, all 6 of the academy players who took penalties out of the 9 who took penalties overall, so 2/3 of their penalty takers were academy players. And all of them scored. The only one who missed was the captain, Kazuki Nakasawa, who scooped one over the top. And this was a penalty shootout being taken in torrential rain as well, which got worse as the shootout went along. And it was the younger players who were at the back end of the takers as well. So they were taking them in the worst conditions and just slotting them left, right, and center. Past Ollie Sale, who didn't look like saving any of the 9 that he faced, which I remember he had a bad record against penalties when he was with the Phoenix. But also I don't want to blame him too much, because he's probably standing there with like a storm gale and torrential rain blowing straight into his face. He probably couldn't even see the ball, So I don't think I'm not going to judge either goalkeeper harshly for the fact that there were no saves made from, I think, 18 penalties taken. But there were 3 misses because 3 guys scooped them over the top.
How was his goal kicks, though?
Well, again, like kicking into a breeze for a lot of it, so a little bit messy. You want to see a good goal kick, check out the Chatham Cup. This isn't goal kick off the ground. This is just a goalkeeper kick out of his hands, the old drop kick one. But Scott Basale set up a goal for Wellington Olympic on the weekend in the Chatham Cup doing that, where he's like, he gave it such a hoof that it went from one penalty area, one bounce into the other penalty area, and then just dropped on the foot of Gianni Bazoukas, who volleyed it straight into the goal. Like, it was as direct as you could possibly get, but enormous boot off Scotty Basale there.
I don't think we're going to see any long range assists for Ollie Sale, but I am open to being surprised there. I counted 8 out of the 11 players as local juniors for the Wellington Phoenix in the 8 of the starting 11. So that was pretty
the
cool.
other 3 being imports.
And two things I want to highlight. I'm seeing a lot of Finraw Conchi in these games. So I think that's just notable because he's got a bit of A-League experience and it's good to see him settling into a steady role. And I think we need to keep tracking how Sloane Rodriguez and Brooke Smith are performing ahead of the season. Like just regular updates about their mahi, because they are 2 X-factor players who can provide the Phoenix with a lot of attacking impetus. So I think, like you mentioned the defenders, but Loki and Conchi are 2 players that I'm curious about in that kind of, well, Loki is like a right-sided player, Conchi's in the midfield, and then just updating us on how Sloane Rodriguez and Brooke Smith are going in this preseason period where they'll get their reps, but come season time, like one of them might be starting, but a lot of their work is going to be coming off the bench, adding impact to the Wellington Phoenix, and that's our...
We will get some... It's almost our... we will get some Auckland FC tonight as well, because they're playing Gold Coast Knights in their Aussie Cup game. So, yeah, tonight, Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. They're all live streamed on YouTube, I think, so should be able to watch that. And yeah, maybe we'll be able to get a few notes in on the Thursday one as well and just chat through some. We'll see. I think they're less likely to lean on a bunch of youngsters because they have such a consistent squad from last year. Everyone's pretty much just coming back, so they haven't needed to make many signings, and they haven't needed to promote too many of their fringier players. But I think we'll see. We'll see a couple. We should get some. Might get some Adama Koulibaly or a bit of Ben McKinley, or some of these guys might get some opportunities in these games. We'll see how that goes, especially because they are playing an NPL team, whereas the Phoenix were up against a fellow A-League team, even if it is the Perth Glory. Although Perth Glory been rebuilt a whole lot. And one of the ways they've rebuilt is by signing Phoenix players. So they had Sam Sutton, they had Scott Wooden, Nico Pennington was out injured, or else he might have been playing as well. He was a Phoenix player 2 years ago. And I didn't realize, but Adam Griffiths has gone there to be the assistant coach since he left as the assistant coach for the Phoenix too. So they've even poached a coach on top of that.
And I do see Fergus Gillian on the bench for the Phoenix.
Yep, he was one of the ones who scored a penalty.
He's the younger brother of Liam Gillian, who's playing for Auckland FC. Righto, good stuff there. So that is the end of our podcast. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha, stay beautiful. Chur chur.